An entire conversation can pass through an internal review before a word is spoken. The greeting gets rehearsed, the opinion softened, and the joke checked for safety. Another version waits in reserve in case the first sounds foolish. From outside, this can look like shyness. Inside, it feels more like a tiny internal approval office. That office never closes. It reviews messages before they are sent and studies each expression before entering a room. Every story, desire, and silence gets measured for how strange it might seem. The moment is no longer simply lived. Part of you watches it happen and predicts how each choice will look. We usually call this a confidence problem. So we try to feel braver, speak louder, or care less about other people's opinions. Sometimes that helps, but it misses something important. Fear may not even be present. The deeper habit is consulting an invisible crowd before acting. That crowd can shape a whole evening without anyone saying a word. The bright shirt stays home. A favorite song remains hidden. The sensible answer comes out, followed by the feeling that life has become slightly borrowed. Nobody had to reject you. An imagined reaction arrived early and wrote part of the behavior for them. So the struggle isn't only between confidence and insecurity. It's between being seen by others and letting their possible gaze become an author inside you. How do you live among people whose opinions sometimes do matter, without handing that imagined crowd the first draft of your life? By the end of tonight, I want to leave you with a clearer way to choose while being seen, without letting imagined judgment choose first. If you enjoy thinking through questions like this with me, subscribing helps others find them too. Liking and sharing the video helps even more. Now, let's begin. The invisible crowd rarely waits until you act. It enters during the rehearsal. A greeting becomes a test. An opinion gets softened, and a joke is checked for danger before anyone else has heard it. Because this review happens so quickly, it can feel responsible rather than fearful. You call it being careful, even while that care keeps deleting the very thing you meant to express. This is why low confidence doesn't quite name the problem. A bad feeling may come and go. Self-editing is an action you repeat. It happens before the action you wanted to take. Before you speak, ask, disagree, apply, invite, or admit that something matters to you. You hold a private rehearsal and search for the version least likely to be rejected. Some editing is useful. We all need tact. You probably shouldn't say every thought exactly as it arrives, especially in a meeting or during an argument about whose turn it was to buy milk. The trouble starts when tact becomes constant self-surveillance. Then you're no longer choosing your words with care. You're treating your natural response as suspicious evidence that must be cleaned up before anyone sees it. The cost is easy to miss because nothing dramatic happens. The message stays unsent. The opinion becomes a nod. The invitation turns into another quiet evening. Each choice seems small and sensible on its own. Together, they teach you that action requires permission from an imagined crowd. Soon the rehearsal feels safer than participation, and the gap between what you feel and what you allow yourself to do keeps growing. That imagined crowd does more than judge what you do. Over time, it can help shape how you feel about the person doing it. You walk away from a conversation feeling clever, awkward, generous, or dull, often without anyone saying a word. Their verdict may exist only in your mind, yet the feeling it creates is real enough to carry home. The social thinker Charles Horton Cooley gave this pattern a simple structure. First, we imagine how we appear to another person. Then we imagine how they judge that appearance. From that guessed judgment, a feeling about ourselves begins to form. Pride may rise, shame may arrive. Confidence can shrink before the other person has even made up their mind. Cooley called this the looking glass self. The phrase is old, but the experience is sitting in your pocket. A delayed reply can become evidence that you were too much. A flat expression across the table can make a good story feel embarrassing halfway through. You may read boredom where there was tiredness, disapproval where there was distraction, or rejection where someone simply had no idea what to say. We don't just meet other people, we also meet our picture of their picture of us. That extra layer can quietly enter the way we stand, speak, choose, and remember. This does not mean every social feeling is a mistake. Other people really do respond to us, and their responses can teach us something. The catch is that we rarely receive a clean verdict. We catch a pause, a glance, a shorter message than usual, then supply the missing meaning ourselves. The mirror is partly social and partly imagined. It reflects us, but the glass is never perfectly clear. That matters because a borrowed judgment can start to feel like a private fact. You stop saying, "They might find me annoying," and begin saying, "I am annoying." A guess hardens into identity. Once that happens, the cost no longer appears social. It shows up in the life you permit yourself to have. The friendship you don't test, the work you don't show, the honest sentence you swallow while everyone else carries on. This is how a life can become smaller without anyone openly rejecting you. You edit the idea before sharing it. You make the proposal safer, flatter, easier to approve. You call it being realistic, and sometimes it is. But sometimes the invisible crowd has already taken a seat at your desk, reading over your shoulder before a real person has seen a word. In creative work, this can look almost responsible. You remove the strange detail because someone may laugh. You copy the tone that already earns approval. The song stays unfinished, the draft remains private, or the photograph never leaves your phone. Nothing dramatic happens. There is no cruel review, only a quiet series of choices that teach you which parts of yourself are supposedly too risky to reveal. At work, the same habit can wear a sensible suit. You don't apply because people like you don't get that role. You soften an opinion until it says almost nothing. You stay useful, agreeable, and slightly invisible. Caution may protect your rent, your energy, or a hard-won place on the team. That isn't failure. The loss begins when an imagined verdict makes every option look closed before you have checked the door. Relationships can narrow in even quieter ways. You laugh at the joke you dislike. You pretend not to care when you do. You become easy to be around, but hard to know. Again, this is not a demand to confess everything or turn every dinner into an emotional hearing. Privacy has value. Restraint has value. The trouble is losing track of whether silence is serving the relationship or merely protecting you from a reaction you have predicted. Once this pattern spreads, you can still appear busy, sensible, and connected. Yet whole roots disappear from your life without leaving a clear moment of refusal. No one bans the bold project, the harder application, or the honest conversation. You simply stop bringing them into the world. That is why exposure matters. It gives reality a chance to answer, instead of letting predictions speak for everyone. So where are you obeying a crowd that has never actually appeared? When you feel watched, the world doesn't merely become more uncomfortable, it can become smaller. A joke you would normally make now seems risky. A view you could defend suddenly feels impossible to phrase. You notice an opening in the conversation, then watch it close while you prepare a safer version of yourself. Nothing has physically stopped you. The door is still open. Yet some choices no longer feel available from the inside. They haven't been rejected. They have slipped beyond what you can imagine yourself doing under another person's gaze. This is why being watched can reach further than embarrassment. It alters the field of action. You can see it in small moments. You order what needs no explanation. You soften the opinion before anyone objects. You leave the bright shirt at home because it seems to announce a confidence you aren't sure you're allowed to have. None of these choices looks dramatic. That is part of their power. A life can narrow through perfectly ordinary decisions. The loss is not only honesty, it is range. Under steady observation, you may stop sensing half your possible responses as yours. Anger becomes unthinkable. Tenderness feels excessive. Ambition sounds embarrassing before it is spoken. You don't choose against them after careful thought. They fail to arrive as live options. The self remains present, but its room to move has shrunk. That changes how freedom should look. We often picture freedom as having permission. Nobody blocks the path, so you are free to take it. But a path you can no longer feel yourself taking is only technically open. The barrier has moved inward, into posture, timing, tone, and the quick little edits that happen before a choice becomes visible. So perhaps courage begins earlier than the grand act. It begins when you notice an option returning to view, the sentence you could say, the request you could make, the version of you that would exist if being legible to someone else were not the price of belonging. If freedom includes the ability to feel your own possibilities, whose gaze has been deciding which of yours are real. You can feel this shift in an ordinary moment. You are telling a story or laughing before you have checked how it sounds. Then you notice someone watching. Suddenly, you are not only doing the thing, you are seeing yourself do it, as if from their side of the room. Sartre called this experience the look. He did not mean eyesight alone. A glance can pass over you without changing much. The look begins when another person's awareness enters your experience of yourself. You are still the one acting, yet you also appear to yourself as someone being seen and judged. That creates an awkward split. From within, you are a living point of view. You choose, hesitate, remember, and reach toward possibilities. From outside, you have a face, a voice, a posture, and a place in somebody else's story. You become visible in ways you cannot fully control. A mistake can make this obvious. You trip on a step while alone, and it is just a clumsy movement. You trip while someone is watching, and the movement seems to become a fact about you. For 1 second, you are not simply recovering your balance. You are the person who tripped. Their possible judgment gives your action a fixed shape. This is why embarrassment can feel so strange. Nothing has trapped you. Yet your freedom now shares the room with an image of you that belongs partly to someone else. You may resist that image, perform for it, or adopt it. Either way, it has entered the scene. Sartre helps us name the risk. We can begin living from that outside position. Before speaking, you hear how you might sound. Before choosing, you picture what your choice will make you look like. The visible version of you starts supervising the living one. But other people also notice things we miss. They can challenge our excuses, recognize our care, and meet choices we could never complete alone. Love, friendship, and work all require some form of shared visibility. So how can we build a life with others without turning ourselves, or them, into fixed characters under inspection? Once you start expecting judgment, you don't need anyone to forbid you. You begin removing options yourself. At work, you keep the ambitious idea quiet, because it may sound naive. With friends, you laugh off the thing that hurt. You choose the safer coat, the softer opinion, the plan that needs no explanation. Nothing dramatic happens. Your life simply gets a little smaller. This is how another person's gaze can become training. A tense look, a joke, or a quick dismissal teaches you which parts of yourself cause trouble. Soon you stop presenting those parts for judgment. You hide them first. The strange part is that the choice can still feel free. No one ordered you to stay silent. You just stopped treating speech as a serious option. The fence moved inside, and now it sounds like your own voice. That can happen around status, money, affection, taste, or simple confidence. You apply for the role that seems acceptable, not the one you actually want. You apologize before making a reasonable request. You call your pleasure silly before anyone else can. Each move saves you from a small risk of exposure. Together, they teach you to confuse being easy to accept with being honest. You become skilled at avoiding rejection by arriving already reduced. The cost isn't only missed opportunities. Your sense of desire grows weaker when you keep choosing from a shortened menu. After a while, "What do I want?" feels oddly hard to answer. You have practiced asking a different question. What version of me will pass here? That question may help you survive a cruel room. But carried everywhere, it turns caution into a personality. You may call it modesty when it is fear with good manners. Living with others can't mean obeying every reaction, and freedom can't mean pretending their reactions have no weight. We need relationships where a choice can appear before it is polished, and where surprise isn't treated as betrayal, that asks courage to remain visible and generosity to let another person change. Otherwise, we don't meet each other. We meet the smaller characters we have trained each other to play. A familiar role can make an uncertain life feel easier to manage. You become the reliable one, the quiet one, the peacemaker, or the person who never needs help. Soon, the role starts making choices before you do, that can feel like safety. If everyone knows what to expect from you, fewer moments become awkward. You know which feelings to hide. You know when to smile, when to agree, and when to say, "It's fine." The role lowers the risk of conflict because it removes many possible moves. This is why a role can be hard to leave, even when it no longer fits. It doesn't only limit you, it protects you from ambiguity. Outside the role, you may have to admit that you don't know what you want. You may disappoint someone. You may try something and discover that you aren't good at it. A fixed identity saves you from being seen in that unfinished state. The reliable person keeps saying yes because refusal would create a new situation. The peacemaker settles an argument before noticing their own anger. The independent person carries too much alone because asking for help would disturb the whole arrangement. None of this requires weakness. Often, it began as intelligent adaptation. The role worked. People rewarded it. Life became more predictable. But predictability has a quiet cost. Other people stop meeting your full range, and you stop bringing it. You can become so skilled at performing steadiness that even rest feels irresponsible, or so practiced at being agreeable that a simple preference feels rude. The shelter stays standing, while the person inside it gets less room. Leaving the role doesn't mean replacing it with a louder performance. You don't need to announce a brand new self over dinner. Change may begin with a small pause where the role usually answers. You notice the automatic yes. You let yourself say, "I'm not sure." You allow one honest preference to exist without defending it. The role was a cage imposed from outside, but it could also feel like a roof. That is why stepping beyond it can feel exposed, even when the weather has changed. We can start helping the judgment that once frightened us. No one has to order you to stay agreeable if you correct yourself first. You soften the opinion before anyone objects. You call the job your personality. You say, "That's just who I am," and close the case. Sartre called this kind of self-hiding bad faith. He didn't mean ordinary dishonesty. You may believe the story you tell yourself. You take one true fact about your life and treat it as the complete truth. I'm the reliable one. I'm a failure. I'm a good daughter. I'm not someone who leaves. Each statement may describe something real, yet it also turns a living person into a fixed object. You can notice your role, judge how you're playing it, and act differently within the freedom you still have. Bad faith begins when you hide that freedom from yourself. That freedom is never unlimited. Money matters, duty matters. Other people can punish a choice. Someone working 2 jobs can't decide that time no longer applies. Limits aren't imaginary, but they don't finish the whole description of you. Even under pressure, you still have some relation to what you're doing. You might consent, resist, delay, plan, speak, or admit that you want something else. Bad faith brings relief from that burden. If the role is your entire nature, you don't have to choose it again. Your part in keeping it alive disappears. The perfect employee says the company left no room, while accepting every late task before anyone asks. The patient friend says conflict is impossible, then removes every honest sentence from the message. This doesn't make you guilty for every judgment placed on you. It means judgment can recruit you. Other people hand you a role, and you may help fasten it because uncertainty feels worse. Freedom can look less like a grand escape, and more like an uncomfortable admission. This role is real, these limits are real, and neither tells the whole truth about me. Where in your life are you saying, "I have no choice," when the more honest sentence is, "I dislike the choices I have"? Some roles are assigned before you're old enough to question them. You become the sensible one, the easy child, the provider, or the person who never needs help. Later, the role can feel less like something you do and more like the price of belonging. That doesn't make the role false. Your family may depend on your income. Your workplace may punish honesty. Money, illness, duty, and social standing can narrow your choices in ways no slogan can fix. Freedom doesn't mean pretending those limits vanish because you've decided to be authentic. Trouble starts when a real limit becomes your whole identity. You stop saying, "I need this job," and begin to believe, "I am only what this job rewards." You stop saying, "My family needs my steadiness," and decide that fear, anger, and desire are no longer permitted. The role begins as protection. Then it saves you from choosing what anyone might see. That refuge can be useful. If you're always the responsible one, you never risk looking confused. If you're the funny one, you can turn pain into a joke before anyone gets close. If you're the outsider, rejection arrives pre-explained. You may still suffer, but you don't have to wonder who you'd be without the familiar part. And this is why dropping a role can feel dangerous, even when nobody forces you to keep it. The role holds your relationships in place. It tells people how to treat you and which parts of yourself can enter the room. Changing it may disappoint someone. It may also expose a wish you can no longer blame on circumstance. You don't need to tear your life apart to notice this. Watch for the moment when duty ends and disappearance begins. Notice which feeling would threaten the part you play. Notice what you never ask for because asking would make you visible in a new way. Then name the role plainly: the reliable one, the victim, the peacemaker, the success, the failure, the person who doesn't care. Which role still serves a real need, and which one have you turned into permission to remain unseen? Once you notice the role, another problem appears. Who, exactly, are you performing it for? We often have no clear answer. We say people expect it. We say you can't just do that. We picture raised eyebrows, awkward silence, perhaps a few disappointed faces. Yet, when we try to name the person whose standard governs us, the crowd turns hazy. It might be your family, though no one has said the rule aloud. It might be your colleagues, including people you barely know. It might be friends from years ago who aren't watching nearly as closely as you think. Sometimes it's a strange blend of a former teacher, a parent's worried voice, and whatever seems respectable online. None of them has to defend the standard. Together, they become everyone. That word can run a life during an otherwise ordinary Tuesday morning. Everyone knows what success looks like. Everyone will think you've wasted your chance. Everyone will notice if you change direction. But everyone never has to sit across from you and explain why this job matters more than your health, or why a quiet life counts as failure. A real person can be questioned, a vague crowd can't. It has no address, no office hours, and no final list of demands. This is why obedience to an unseen crowd can feel endless. There is no moment when the crowd says, "Good, you've done enough." You can earn more, stay agreeable, avoid embarrassment, and keep the role polished. The verdict remains pending. The standard shifts before you reach it. The point isn't to ignore other people. We need trust, duty, and honest correction. Some expectations protect real relationships. The useful move is to make the crowd concrete. Whose respect are you afraid to lose? What have they actually asked of you? Would you accept their judgment in other parts of your life? And if no person can be named, what authority are you obeying? Many of us live before a tribunal that never meets. Its judges have no faces. Its rules were never argued, and its sentence is always the same: remain acceptable. You see a comment with thousands of likes, and it can feel heavier than a hard conversation. No one has to explain the standard. No one has to stay and hear your answer. Yet the judgment arrives with the force of a crowd leaning over your shoulder. Kierkegaard had a name for this authority: the public. He didn't mean every group or every shared opinion. He meant an abstraction made from countless strangers who never gather. They don't look each other in the eye. They don't make a promise. They don't accept any duty toward the person they judge. That absence of duty is what gives the public its power. A real person can be questioned. You can ask what they saw, why they object, and whether they'll stand by their words tomorrow. An abstract crowd answers nothing. It creates pressure without becoming responsible for the pressure it creates. This is why a vague judgment can grow larger than a concrete one. Your friend may dislike your choice, but your friend has a name, a history, and some risk in speaking. The public risks nothing. It can praise you at breakfast, mock you by lunch, and forget you. You're left carrying a verdict whose authors have already moved on. Kierkegaard thought this distance weakened individual responsibility on both sides. The crowd could condemn without owning the condemnation. The individual could hide inside the crowd and say what they might never say alone. Meanwhile, the person being watched could start shaping a whole life around reactions that belong to no stable relationship. You can feel the absurdity when one rude remark ruins an evening, while 20 acts of loyalty barely register. The remark seems to represent everyone. It doesn't. It has borrowed the costume of everyone. So the issue isn't whether public opinion is always false. Sometimes a response reveals something we need to face. The issue is whether the judgment comes from people who can give reasons, hear an answer, and share the cost of being wrong. If nobody must stand behind the verdict, how much of your life should stand beneath it? Losing the crowd's approval doesn't free you from responsibility. It only removes a bad judge from the highest seat. You can ignore a cruel comment and still listen when a friend says you were careless. Freedom from approval hunger isn't permission to become conveniently deaf. Epictetus gives us one useful limit. Your character is your responsibility. Another person's reaction is not. You can choose whether to lie, mock, interrupt, or admit fault. You cannot choose whether the other person forgives you, praises your honesty, or tells everyone you're awful. Their response may matter. It just cannot decide what your conduct was worth. Adam Smith offers another test. He asks us to view ourselves from the position of a fair and informed observer, not the loudest person in the room, not the version of the crowd you've built in your head. A fair observer would need the facts, the setting, your motives, and the harm done. That makes moral judgment narrower. It also makes it answerable. Suppose you refuse a request from someone you love. Approval hunger asks, are they upset with me? Conscience asks, was I honest, fair, and needlessly harsh? Those questions can produce different answers. They may be upset because you finally set a reasonable limit, or they may be upset because you used honesty as an excuse to be cruel. Their displeasure alone settles neither case. This distinction is uncomfortable because it denies us two easy escapes. We cannot obey every reaction and call that goodness. We cannot dismiss every reaction and call that independence. We have to examine the criticism, consider who bears its effects, and answer for the part that is ours. Sometimes that means changing course. Sometimes it means letting someone remain disappointed without rushing to purchase peace with your self-respect. Responsibility survives. Approval simply loses its crown. The fair judgment is smaller than the crowd's verdict, but it asks more of you. Facts you can name, reasons you can defend, and consequences you're willing to face. That difference becomes especially important when approval is no longer coming from a person in front of you, but from a screen built to count reactions. For many people, being seen is no longer an occasional event. It's part of the working day. You post an update, polish a profile, share a project, count the reactions, and try to look capable without looking desperate to be noticed. That creates pressure. Your work must be good, but it must also be visible. Your interests need to sound useful. Your personality needs to fit inside a short introduction. Even rest can become material. A book on the table, a run before sunrise, a quiet weekend presented as proof that you're balanced. None of this is automatically false. A clear profile can help the person find you. Sharing your work can open doors. Networking can create friendships and useful chances. The trouble begins when self-presentation stops being something you do and starts deciding who you're allowed to be. Then every choice carries two jobs. It has to serve your life, and it has to remain legible to strangers. A messy learning period looks like failure. A private interest feels wasted because nobody can measure it. Changing direction becomes awkward because your old identity is still sitting online, dated and searchable. Career culture adds numbers to the pressure. Followers, views, connections, ratings, response times, sales, and praise can all become signals of worth. They may tell you something useful. They can also turn a person into a dashboard. Once that happens, approval hunger gains an office, a schedule, and monthly targets. You may start choosing work that photographs well over work that matters to you. You may speak in polished phrases you'd never use with a friend. You may keep an exhausted version of yourself running because it has better name recognition than the person you're becoming. The answer isn't to disappear or pretend reputation has no effect. Jobs are offered by people. Trust is social. Other people need some way to understand what you can do. But constant exposure makes a temporary description feel like a permanent obligation. We're asked to build a public self, keep it consistent, and improve its numbers, while a human life remains uneven, partly private, and difficult to package. You can feel this shift when a useful public role follows you home. The competent colleague keeps rehearsing tomorrow's meeting in the shower. The calm friend edits a private disappointment before admitting it. Even rest starts to look like part of the presentation, the walk that somehow needs a photograph. No one has to order this. Repetition does the training. Irving Goffman gave us a way to understand the social work involved. In encounters, we manage the impression other people receive. We read the setting, notice what is expected, and adjust what we show. That doesn't make every interaction dishonest. You speak differently to a manager than to someone who has known you for 20 years. Each version may be sincere. The strain begins when evaluation stops feeling like an event and becomes the climate you live in. Under that pressure, impression management can become automatic. You don't merely prepare for the interview, you start hearing an interviewer during breakfast. You don't only shape a post, you judge the unposted afternoon as if it failed to earn its place. The crowd may be absent, yet its standards remain. After enough practice, the performance no longer waits for a stage. It becomes posture, timing, taste, even the tone of your thoughts. This is how strategic visibility hardens into habit. A choice that helped you pass through a demanding situation becomes the default way you meet yourself. Private life then loses some of its power to correct the public one. There is less space to be clumsy, undecided, boring, or simply changed. You may not be lying. You may be living inside an old answer to a question nobody is asking. Resistance might begin with a small act of social disobedience, letting one experience remain useless as evidence. Enjoy the meal without improving your identity. Admit uncertainty before you can package it as growth. Do something worthwhile that leaves no visible proof. The discomfort is revealing. It shows how deeply the imagined crowd has entered the private room. And if no one were going to reward, rank, or remember this version of you, what would you allow yourself to become? You cannot make yourself completely invisible, and you probably wouldn't want to. Other people matter. Their trust matters. Being understood matters. The trouble starts when being understood becomes the price of doing anything at all. Some choices will make sense to the people around you. Others will look wasteful, inconsistent, or oddly small. A job that pays less may give you back your evenings. A friendship may deserve more care than an impressive contact. You may protect a quiet interest that adds nothing to your public identity. None of these choices arrives with a perfect explanation. That is where resistance becomes costly. It is easy to value freedom in theory. It is harder to choose something important when you know it may be read badly. Someone may call your patience fear. They may treat your new boundary as selfishness or your change of direction as failure. You can explain yourself, but explanations have limits. People listen through their own needs, memories, and ideas about who you are. This does not mean other people's judgments are worthless. Sometimes they see the excuse you have polished into a principle. Sometimes their confusion tells you that you have acted carelessly. But you cannot hand every choice to a public vote. If you wait until everyone reads you correctly, your life will remain easy to describe and difficult to inhabit. So the practical stance is partial visibility. You let some people know more. You accept that others will know less. You decide which relationships deserve a fuller account and which opinions do not need an appeal hearing in your head. That isn't emotional immunity. Misunderstanding can still sting, especially when it comes from someone you love. The shift is smaller and more demanding. You choose what matters enough to carry some imperfect legibility. You stop asking every decision to protect your image from all possible readings. Then approval becomes information rather than command. A life shaped this way may look less consistent from the outside. From within, it can become more honest. The next choice is not how to escape being seen. It is whose judgment belongs in the room when you decide. You will be misunderstood sometimes. That isn't proof that you failed to explain yourself, or that everyone else is cruel. It's part of being visible. Once people can see your choices, they can simplify, doubt, or mock them. They may read them through fears that have little to do with you. Perfect wording can't prevent that. This is where freedom becomes less glamorous and more useful. Freedom isn't a private feeling of certainty. It's acting from priorities you're willing to admit, while accepting that someone may still form the wrong picture of you. Choose the work, and you may be called obsessed. Protect an evening, and someone may call you selfish. Change direction, and you may seem unreliable. Sometimes the criticism will be lazy, sometimes it will be accurate. You have to learn the difference without making every opinion a command. That takes more than confidence. Confidence can harden into a refusal to listen. Approval hunger makes every voice powerful. Pride makes every voice irrelevant. Neither allows much honest correction. You need a stance firm enough to choose and open enough to revise. When criticism arrives, make it concrete. What action caused harm? Which promise did you break? What fact did you ignore? What could change next time? Useful criticism points to something you can examine. A vague judgment usually can't. You've changed may mean you broke a commitment. It may mean you stopped playing a role that kept someone else comfortable. Those are different events. You don't have to treat every reaction as wisdom. You also shouldn't dismiss discomfort just because it threatens the version of you that feels brave. Listen for facts and patterns. Ask whether the person knows what happened and shares the consequences. Ask whether their concern connects to a value you claim as your own. Then decide. The decision remains yours, but it doesn't have to remain untouched. This freedom has a cost. You lose the fantasy that one perfect choice will satisfy everyone and preserve every relationship. Some people will prefer the quieter version of you. Some may understand only after time passes. A few may never understand. That hurts because we don't merely want permission to live. We want to be seen correctly while we do it. But full understanding can't be the entry price for an honest life. If you wait for unanimous approval, you place your days in the hands of people who may never know what you value or what your silence has cost. You can explain yourself with care. You can repair harm and change your mind. Then you have to choose while the room is still divided. That is hard, but it is also a form of dignity. That choice doesn't make you fearless. It makes you answerable. You can say, plainly, this is what I'm protecting. This is the cost I accept. This is the evidence that could change my mind. Those statements give freedom a shape. They keep impulse from dressing itself as courage. A life that feels like yours won't be free from judgment. It will be visible, imperfectly understood, and available for correction. You'll make choices before everyone approves. Sometimes a critic will see something you missed. Sometimes their disappointment will be the sound of an old role ending. Either way, remain present. Don't disappear into the crowd or build a fortress against it. Let other people speak without giving them authorship. Act, explain, and revise when the facts demand it. Keep responsibility for the life that carries your name.